Hello, ladies and gentlemen, also those in between. We are going to present our work about vegetation analysis. So before we start the presentation, let me introduce you to our team members. Next, please. Yeah, so here we are. First, we have Rusma Savrinta Meydya, and then Alya Setya Ningrum, Dewi Nur Rachmawati, and Afiif Farhan Yustyanto as our members. So you have informed about our team. Now let's move on to the next sessions, which is our main presentation.
Okay, the first is vegetation analysis. Vegetation analysis is a way to find the composition of vegetation types from the most dominant to the non-dominant. In relation to which, vegetation analysis is used to determine weeds that have high ability to control growth, facilities, and living space. The results of the vegetation analysis can later be used in making weed control decision. In the next is a objective of vegetation analysis. First, studying the succession rate. Two, knowing which dominance on the codominant ones. Three, knowing the picture of with composition. Four, observing change in flora due to control. I'm sorry. The next in the last is define with control measures. In the next is vegetation analysis has two ways of the collecting data. First, qualitative data. It's based on field observation based on to autocology. The containing first, how weeds are dispersed and grouped. Two, stratification or classification of weeds. Three, weed character, periodicity or similarity. Uh, Two, quantitative data based on the result of the elaboration of the observation of the sample plots in the file. The containing is amount, size, weight, and area covered.
Vegetation analysis methods. First, estimate. Estimate in the field are carried out by experienced people, namely by looking at them, carried out at a certain point that remains located. This method is used when the vegetation population is evenly distributed and there is not much time available. Two, quadratic methods. Methods that use unit of area measured in unit of quadrat, meter quadrat or centimeter quadrat, but the plot size is in square units, rectangle, and circle. Next. Three, the line of slope method with elongated sample plots placed over the vegetation community. For large areas, the method is often used because it is not only fast but also quick to root. For example, for young plantation where weed population are dense, low in group with clear group boundaries. For the point method, the point method is a variation of the quadratic method. If a square is reduced to infinity, it becomes a point. The point method is effective for sampling vegetation that is low, dense, and from a woven that is not clearly demarcated from one another.
Please. Okay, so here's the calculation of vegetation analysis. We have parameter, formulas, and amount of calculations. Next, please. Okay, so for the parameter, we have frequency, which is the number of sample plots containing the weed space from all sample plots. Then we have density, which is a number of individual weed species. And then we have dominance, which is total quantity of plant hay or dry weight in the single plot. Next, please. Okay, so for the formulas, we have absolute density among the number of individuals of that species in the sample plot. And then we have relative density amount of absolute density defined by the sum of the absolute densities of all types multiplied 100%. Then absolute dominance amount of total biomass value or volume of that type. Then the relative dominance amount, absolute dominance of the breed defined by the absolute dominance of all species multiplied 100%. And then for the absolute frequency of a species among the number of sample plots containing that type. And then for the relative frequency amount with absolute frequency of that type defined by a number of frequencies absolutely of all species multiplied by the 100%. And then for the significant value, amount of relative density plus relative frequency plus relative dominance. STR or sum dominance ratio, amount of important value defined by those three. Next, please. Okay, so there are four types of weeds based on their morphology and botany, namely grasses, sedges, and broadleafs, also fern.
Weed management is prevention, physical or mechanical control, chemical control, and biological control. A. Prevention. It is a weed control effort. So prevention effort including 1. Clearing the land of weeds before cultivating plants. 2. Selection or separation of weed seeds that may be mixed in the seeds or attached to agricultural equipment. 3. Use of nature manure to prevent contamination of weed seeds. 4. Prevention of transportation of plants, soil or objects that have the potential to transfer weeds or weed seeds to cultivated land. B. Physical or mechanical control. It is weed control which is carried out with agricultural tools through tillage, pruning, flooding, burning, and the use of mulch. C. Chemical control. Chemical weed control using herbicides. Classification of herbicides based on their effectiveness on weeds. Selective herbicides, namely herbicides that only function more effectively to kill certain weeds. For example, emethrin, boron, oxyflovan, clomazone, and carbendazole. Non-selective herbicides, namely herbicides that can kill all types of weeds, for example, glyphosate and paraquat. Herbicides are classified based on the type of herbicide translocation in weed organs, namely 1. Contact herbicides, non-translocated. Quick contact herbicides kill weeds but weeds grow back quickly because they kill only those exposed to the herbicide, so they don't reach the roots. Example of contact herbicides are oxyflovan, oxidazone, and paraquat. 2. Systemic translocated herbicides. Systemic herbicides kill weeds starting from the crown or leaf affected by the herbicides and then to the entire weed network. Example of herbicides that flow through the canopy are glyphosates, sulfosates, and esters, while herbicides that flow through the soil are emethrin, atrazines, metribuzins, and diron. D. Biological control. Weed control by biological means can be done because each weed species and natural enemies. Weed control is carried out by suppressing weeds population with natural enemies such as insects, fungi, livestock, fish, and so on, so that the presence of weeds is no longer harmful. Thank you.
And so that was all. Thank you for paying attention. A discussion can be held on SPADA. So thank you so much. Goodbye.